What's going on, F1 fans? My name's Alex. That's Eileen. You're watching It's Lights Out F1, and I want to start by saying thank you for returning to watch. We really appreciate everything.
All of our followers.
Everything. All the new ones, all the old ones. This season has been crazy. We started this only, 9-10 months ago?
Yes.
And I can't believe the season's already over, to be honest. I don't want to talk too much right now about the whole general season. I just really want to focus on this race because really that's what it came down to when we started the race. But really it just came down to one lap, apparently.
Oh, man, what a weekend.
Yeah.
Wow, who would have thought we were going into this race level points? Like, it was such a storybook tale.
Yeah,
I couldn't have written it better.
I guess. I mean, it seems so scripted and fake.
It seems so unreal.
It does.
Like, who thought? Who would have thought 21 races later on the 22nd race of the season, we would be tied?
I know. Tied. Yeah. So everybody should know.
By now, we have a new world champion.
First Dutch racer.
Yes. In history.
He's
not without controversy.
Yes.
We waited to actually film this until the controversy was over, but needless to say, is it really over?
No, I don't think it is. Actually, it's still up for debate even till this moment, unless we heard the verdict from what they were going to do was...
They're going to appeal. They're going to appeal the dismissal of Mercedes protests. So
we'll see how that goes. So it's going to higher courts.
We will get into that, but...
Yeah, so the goal is to always try to film this as fast as possible as soon as the race is over, just to get what has just happened in our heads out to you guys, like see what you guys think.
We did take a little bit of time to process.
Yeah, this was a processing one, just like last week. It seems like these last few ones have been you needed a little time to process. I've heard some other people talk about that too. They even took like a whole day, and I don't know.
The pressure's been so wild. I feel like we needed the time. I don't know about you, but I couldn't sleep last night. I mean, I have the notifications on the phone, so it's like as soon as it triggers, it goes off. I'm like, oh man, just waiting for today all week, just waiting for it, knowing what was gonna happen. Are they gonna crash? What's gonna happen? So it was the culmination.
It was the culmination of a really, really good season, a really good battle between two teams, two racers.
Yeah.
I'm just really blown away. Still kind of speechless on what I want to say for even today, right now. So I want to open a couple things up with questions to you guys. First of all, I'm going to ask you two and you guys, what do you think of the final lap, of the final call from the stewards, from the FIA, from our main guy who runs F1.
We're getting straight to the drama.
I do, because it would kind of have to.
It was kind of a boring race. Let's just say that.
Like, we'll get into it, but I just want to ask the question first.
What did I think?
Yeah.
What did you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought they were going to red flag it. I did. I really did. I was like, okay, it's definitely going to be a red flag.
Yeah. There was about 5 laps left.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so many questions around why the decision was what it was. And once again, another week in a row, we hear the teams interfering on the radio with the race director, with the stewards. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we making this decision? And it's nothing to do with the racers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the last few races has been out of their control. They're just out there racing. And the decisions are coming down to people who aren't even on the track.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of that. And I agree. I thought they were either going to red flag it or just finish it under the safety car. Because it has finished under the safety car earlier this season, like you mentioned to me earlier. Last year. And definitely previous years. And definitely it has done that. That's not out of the norm. However, with the championship being the way it was, it doesn't really want to come down to a yellow flag. So
not when they're tied on points.
I agree, and that's my thought process was like, all right, well, you red flag the whole thing, and then it's a shootout to the end. But
yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean,
it was, but it was also timing because when you watch the replay, Lewis passed the pit entrance.
Right, when the decision was being made.
Yeah, before things were happening. So he wasn't able he would have had to go all the way around the lap again to even pit.
Well, don't you remember his team radio? Bleep.
Yeah.
I don't even know what he said.
We don't know.
So something happened there.
Yeah.
And he clearly was not happy. But yeah, no, he had just missed the pit entry.
All right, so that's yeah.
So I think that's the biggest question.
Yeah. So
the day.
I'm kind of curious on what you guys think. Please tell us what you guys think of the last lap, the yellow flag. What do you guys think should have happened? But other than that, I think we should just get into the weekend.
Yes.
Yeah. So first off, starting new track apparently.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of made some changes, but they made so many changes that it actually became a new track.
Yeah.
And they had to get it recertified by the FIA.
And there was a lot of talk that Karun, because he was helped design it,
Yeah.
he made it to an advantage of Mercedes. But
I don't know. Sure.
who knows? I think actually when you listen to the racers, they all like Max, Lewis, everybody, they enjoyed it. They enjoyed the way that it was. It was more free flowing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know, I only know from playing simulator games, or you know the mobile game.
He's a professional F1 driver. He's coming up.
I'm coming up. Once we see how this new future plays, where we're playing for Ethereum, we'll see how it goes. But that's a different story for a different time.
Yes.
So we're back on the track. You know, honestly, my opinion was I agree. Yes, it free flowing made it look faster.
It was faster. So
it was.
What was it last year? Max's pole time was I think 1:31 or 1:32. This year, Max's pole time was like 1:21. So it was a lot faster.
Yeah.
I mean, they took out a few turns, like, you know, they put a banking in. You know, there was a lot of things that.
It was a 1:22.1.
Yeah, made it a lot quicker. Yeah, so a little bit less than 10 seconds, but pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And I think if the temperatures were probably right, it probably would have been 11 seconds, like some of the people were saying. It's about 11 seconds faster. You know, yeah, I kind of liked the second chicane part, the two turns, but that they turned into the nice banking, you know, and that you know, it definitely slowed down them in the track, and
well, that was the area supposedly where you could overtake on the
yeah,
whole track.
and how much
So
overtaking did we see there?
On the new part, not really.
Yeah.
Not really a whole lot. It was really just down the main straights.
Yeah.
Actually on turn 1 was where we saw the most.
So
or turn 6?
It was turn 6 or 5 or 6, I think. Yeah, and honestly, that was because they got rid of that chicane there, which was the first chicane.
Yeah.
And that was the best one. That was a must. You should have gotten rid of that right away because that makes it a lot faster into that turn, and then coming out in the straight, there's a whole lot to do. So I agree. That was the perfect move. The second part where they made the nice half moon, I like that. The thought process is you could, it's kind of banked, so you could add some side by side, some passing there. And I don't know how, I guess.
I think we really didn't see too much.
No,
but then
a little
again,
bit.
we really didn't see too much overtaking.
Not a whole lot. The race was a little
lackluster.
a little dull at moments.
I feel like we saw a lot more DNFs than we would typically see, so that was a little unusual, which, you know, it's the end of the season.
Typical,
so
you know.
A little bit more typical, but yeah. So, I mean, we'll spend maybe, I don't know, 2 minutes on qualifying. Not a whole lot happened. We were going to film a whole separate video for it, but it was basic qualifying.
Yeah, nothing out of the normal other
Except
than
for
the
slingshot.
Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna just mention a little bit. So from Talladega Nights, Ricky Bobby and his teammate do a slingshot move to catapult Ricky Bobby ahead, and yeah, we just witnessed that in real life with F1. The slingshot move definitely worked, and Max said it was only 1/10.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And I would disagree with that. That's
Okay,
just, you know.
With qualifying, I'm like,
Let's just say
Max was getting pole irregardless, I think. So I don't want to fight that the toe was what got him there. Because I don't think it did.
Sure.
And this is Q3. We're talking about Q2 because they went out there on the mediums. Max ended up flat spotting his last pair of new mediums, which I didn't see a huge flat spot.
I agree. I didn't see any flat spot, but again, we're not in the car. We're not on a team now.
We didn't see the tires.
So
we weren't there.
My thought process is because a lot of people were saying that no one locks up in turn one.
A lot of people, meaning Lewis? Or?
Sure. So I heard some people say that, yeah. So I would agree. I didn't see it really, and he did lock up a little bit for a brief moment, but I didn't.
I just locked up, and I locked up massive.
Yeah, because, when you're in that qualifying in Q2, those tires go to the race. So I would have said the same thing, too. Like, oh, yeah, massively locked up, get them away from me. And, I think they probably were able to investigate. I bet those tires really weren't that bad, and they probably would have been able to do something with them.
Or maybe they were going to use them and scrub them and
that's what
use
I
them
thought
for today.
And that's what I thought. I thought, okay, at the end of the race, I thought, we're going to see him come out on the mediums. But he came out on softs, which was probably a better move anyway.
There was one lap left.
Yeah.
But anyway, so qualifying. So Q2 is when they did the slingshot, Ricky Bobby style. It was so perfect.
It was.
I mean, the teamwork from Checo this weekend, like,
more than legendary. I think Max said it best right when he passed him in the race to legendary, and the man earned, that.
I mean, just amazing. So it was awesome. So the thing was, he gave Max the toe in Q2. So they ended up both being on softs.
Mm-hmm.
He gave him the toe.
Yep.
Pulled over going into sector 3. Max was just, beast mode. Like, by far. I think it was 6/10 he was up on Lewis in Q2. And then Max, on his out lap or his in lap, gave Perez the toe, and he ended up having a really good lap too. So, yeah, it was great. That's really what we saw, and then it was standard. Q3, not a whole lot, nothing crazy.
The big thing was Yuki getting into Q3
over Gasly.
That was a big one, and then kind of
Bottas being in P6.
Yeah, kind of where he finished up. Yeah, that was kind of a shocker.
Weird.
But the good thing was we saw Norris finish in the third spot for qualifying, which was a good thing for me. I'm a McLaren fan. I was pretty geeked about it. And then we saw Ricciardo just squeak in position 10. So that kind of rounded up the top 10 for the qualifying. Anything else you want to talk about with qualifying?
The only other thing was just, for me, that Lewis said in post-qualifying that they had never used, like, the toe in qualifying.
Oh, yeah.
And
we don't do that.
And I'm a Mercedes fan, but I was like, I feel like I've seen that this year. Maybe not the Ricky Bobby slingshot. Maybe not, but I feel like I've definitely seen the toe a lot in qualifying.
There was definitely the toe, and Lewis has definitely done that before.
Yeah, but anyways, no, qualifying was pretty standard. I guess the biggest call-out was that we only had 3 drivers in the top 10 on the mediums going into the race, so Lewis, Bottas, and Tsunoda. Everybody else was on the soft, so it was like, is it going to work to their advantage? Is it not? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
I spent all night on Twitter looking at everything, trying to figure out what was going to be the best tire strategy.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So you were kind of worried.
I was reading everything. I'm like, what's going to happen?
Anxious.
Is this right? Is this not? Is this right? Are the mediums right? Are the softs right? What's going to happen?
Right.
But, yeah.
So that kind of led us up till Sunday morning, and first news pops that Mazepin has COVID and is not going to race. Now, I guess that was Haas doesn't have a reserve driver.
No, they said that they couldn't, based on the codes, and you've already said it in a previous race, if you don't have a racer that practices at least one practice,
you're right.
They can't go into the Grand Prix.
Yeah, they need to put down a time. They don't need to go to qualifying. They need to put down a time in practice. I
think we talked about this with the Brazil Grand Prix because of Lewis's disqualification or whatever. So, yeah, speedy recovery. Yeah. But another driver with COVID, unfortunately.
So Sunday morning, the announcements with Mazepin with COVID, and we only have 19 racers. We have a big thing with Raikkonen's being his last race. and he was kind of starting in the back, P18. His race really wasn't too great, even though everybody in F1 world was definitely trying to give him driver of the day.
Which he did get.
He did get,
yes.
Even though he didn't finish, and he definitely deserved. He driver of the decade. I guess
it was his 349th start. I think it was 300. Either that 346th. I don't know. I feel terrible not knowing, but I think it was 349. But yeah, the most race starts out of all the drivers on the grid. Unfortunately, he had some brake issues and didn't get to finish. But he was driver of the day. Iceman out.
Iceman out. We're going to leave him alone now.
Yes.
So other than that, the start of the race is with Verstappen in front, Hamilton and Norris P3, and Perez right there. So P2 is technically kind of a better spot. It's on the racing line on the inside of turn 1. Max or Lewis on the mediums. Did you think?
I did not think Lewis was going to get a better start. I literally thought, I was like, you know what's probably going to happen last night when I could not fall asleep? I'm like, here's what's going to happen. Perez is going to overtake Lewis going into turn 1. Everybody's on the softs. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have a feeling it's going to be a Red Bull 1-2 and then probably Lewis, because Norris was very like, I have a good seat to the battle. Not really sure if I want to get involved in it.
I know, he should have got involved.
He ran wide at turn 1.
He did. So. He had a little mistake. I don't think he braked very well. His tires weren't up to temp, or they started to cool down a little too much.
But Lewis had the better start. It was like, was it a 10th quicker?
I think well over a 10th faster right off the reaction. So it was pretty quick,
and even Max was like, I don't know what happened with the start, dropped the throttle, and just didn't have a whole lot of grip, so who knows. But I do know that Max was already on the grid, and Lewis was coming in. So Lewis was holding up and backing up like normal, doing his thing, and Max was already up there for a little bit of a further period of time, so maybe that affected his tire grip at the start, not sure, but yeah, it was tough. So Lewis immediately took the lead, but Perez moved up into P3 pretty quick.
P3 right away, right after Norris went wide, and he kind of slotted back in P4. There was a little bit of battle behind them for positioning, and really we kind of saw
Bottas get swallowed up by Tsunoda.
Yeah, for sure. And then we saw Max kind of go for a little lunge at the hairpin, and he definitely dove inside, took the racing line, stayed on the track.
This is the standard Max move, I feel like.
Well, yeah, he uses the full length of the track on each of the turns, so he goes from outside to apex back to outside and takes the whole length.
Yeah, but he also is more daring. He brakes a lot later, so he braked later.
Yeah.
Which is what we've seen historically in the past. And Lewis was trying to take the corner. Like, you see it, but then it's like they're going to come together. So he's either going to hit the side of Max's car or he's going to go wide outside of track limits on the first lap. The first controversy of the craziest season, the most controversial season. Let's just get it started. So
that's around turn 5, I believe. I could be wrong, but I believe it was turn 5 when that happened. A question for you guys and for you then. Do you think that was a legal move? Do you think that he had the right to be there? Or do you think Lewis had the right to be there? And then do you think Lewis had the right to take on and stay in front?
Well, I mean, I think if we're trying to be consistent, which is what we should be.
Okay.
That they both had the right to be there, just like they did last weekend. They both had the right to be there in that first turn, but I think Max was a little bit ahead. He was pulling ahead because he braked a little bit later, and so I was like, well, why isn't he giving the position back? He should give the position back.
Okay, so you think he should have gave the position back?
The same exact thing that happened.
What do you guys think?
Last weekend happened this weekend, but roles reversed. So you know what I mean? And so. And for me, when I watched it again, it seemed like he did have a decent advantage. Like, he wasn't that far ahead going into the corner.
Oh, no.
And then he was pretty far ahead after he, returned to the track. So the big thing is he gave the time back. We didn't hear the radio, so we don't know, but we just
No,
heard
and
Red
I would
Bull.
like to say I don't think he gave anything more than a tenth back then, if he gave anything back, because when he came back onto the track, he was gone because he floored it through when he was off the track. Lewis floored it and just kind of was well out in front.
When it was happening, like the first time we were watching it, I was thinking he went off the track and he was going to be re-entering like way behind them, and then I was like, wait, he's in front still.
Yeah, he's
so
gone.
I was kind of confused, and so then it was I had to see the replay. But I think in all being consistency across the board, it should have been the same as last weekend. Max did it twice. He got the penalty on the second time, but he should have given the place back.
There you go. So then
I know it's up for controversy, but
it is.
I think, things still would have turned out in Lewis's favor as far as his race pace, but
yeah, I agree. I think he should have gave it back too. I think that was definitely the first mistake from the stewards today.
Which has been a lot, unfortunately. So
Too bad.
It's been a little crazy season. But anyway, so that was lap 1, and
so that was lap 1. And then Max kind of fell back into place and stayed in second, and kind of was about a little behind a second, about a 1.1, 1.2 back. And I figured, all right, that's where they're going to kind of live inside the 3-second range to kind of keep it up for the pit stops. Now, I know that Max had soft tires, so he was definitely going to have to pit a lot sooner. I didn't think it was quite as soon as he needed to. I thought it was going to be a couple more laps later than what it really was.
Well, they said the soft tires were going to last with high fuel loads 20 laps max.
Yeah, and he was already complaining at what, 11,
I think it was
13, somewhere around there?
It was like 10 or 11. They ended up pitting on 15, but when you're fighting somebody,
you're
like
pushing
that,
them.
and you're in the dirty air and all the other stuff that we were like, oh my God, is this the right decision? So I had a feeling it was going to be early. He said the rears were going, and then it was a few laps later. He's like, listen, the rears are really going, and he was losing a pretty decent chunk of time.
He was falling back about 5-6 seconds.
By the time he was actually pitted in lap 15, it was about 5-6 seconds. Yeah. So it was looking to be a Mercedes advantage.
And from right there, I was kind of just like, oh man, here we go. I didn't, I was like, man, this is starting to look really, really like Lewis. Things are starting to fall back into place. It was kind of reminding me of previous years, Abu Dhabi, where it's more a procession of cars. The Monaco style, where if you pull, and Lewis took first, was in first, and it was just the DRS train, and it just kind of finished that way.
So Max pitted first.
Yeah.
It was a great pit stop, but he was coming out like right where everybody was like basically coming around.
And I don't know what was going on with the announcers. They kind of were like, oh yeah, he's going to be out in front of one of the Ferrari drivers. I think it was Carlos. Yeah. But then Carlos just zipped right by quite quickly. And
he ended up behind Norris too. So he ended up a decent chunk. So it was like Bottas, Perez, Hamilton, like all those drivers he was behind. And then, of course, having the leader advantage, Verstappen pits, Hamilton pits the next lap.
Because he has the position too, yeah.
Yeah, so he pits, comes out cleanly.
Yeah.
No issues, no problems. And then
we still have Perez out on his soft tires because he is the king of, extending those tires. We were getting up to a lap.
I feel like he was like...
It was like 19-20 because everything happened right after. It was lap 21.
But when he came out, what was it like? It was like 11.
I think it was 8. 8 seconds.
No. It was like 11 or 12 because I remember it getting down to 9 and I was like...
maybe you're right.
And I'm like, oh man, he's closing up quick. But then Max is closing up. Max quickly overtook the McLaren, the Ferrari.
Yeah, it took him a lap or two for that.
Yeah,
but then, Lewis was definitely on a hunt to come and try to pass Perez. Perez was just going to save those tires until Lewis showed up. And honestly, that was probably the best battle I've seen all season. There's been good ones throughout the years, and this was top.
I mean, hold on.
It was fair.
There was some good racing, but I would say the Perez-Hamilton battle of Abu Dhabi was the best racing of the race. hands down.
Well, of the race, yes, hands down. Probably of the season, too.
It was like the cleanest battle.
Very
like,
clean.
No, like, I mean, despite what people were saying, clean. Like, Perez wasn't trying anything crazy.
No, but he kept putting, he put his car in the right spot because he had to let Hamilton do the pass with the DRS the first time. But then as soon as he got past, he just dove right in for that corner.
The best was when it was like Hamilton overtook and he was on one side, overtook on the other side, and then he like came and whipped around and overtook on the other side. So pretty much, the engineer came on and told him like, you're gonna be holding him up, you're gonna be battling him, you're gonna be doing. Do whatever you need to do.
Honestly, and he got back in front of him right in the right sector when everything tightens up and it's all those turns kind of into the marina right there, right by the hotel where it's all the the back section of the course, and definitely slowed him up. I mean, just probably put the brakes on every turn because once you do those turns, you can't really pass on those. So Lewis was kind of stuck right there. And definitely held him up, and like we just saw Max just hunting down those two in the back.
If he would have had, I mean, really in reality, if he would have gotten past Perez a lot quicker, I mean, nothing really would have mattered ultimately because everything ended up at the last lap of the race. But if he would have, gotten past Perez quickly, he still would have had a 3.5 to 4 second advantage over Verstappen. But he didn't get past him until it was like 1 second.
It was a little over, but it was in 1.7, 1.6 or
and
something.
Max is like, Checo is a legend.
Yeah, so Lewis got past Checo, and then Max came charging right behind him, and you saw Checo kind of just slow up just enough to give Max the DRS, and then he kind of just slowed up right then and going into one of the turns, and it gave him pretty much another slingshot. So we got to kind of see two good slingshots from Red Bull this weekend, and I think Ricky Bobby would be very proud. I think Talladega Nights would be proud of that. So that kind of set it up for a brief battle on the second stint with the hards there. And again, I thought, all right, maybe Max has something to do here. He can kind of come up, and really Lewis kind of just put the pedal down and just kind of started slowly pulling away lap after lap. He was putting down best lap after best lap. You remember he kept having purple. Yeah. Oh yeah, purple.
I was like, so Lewis is just going to keep putting in fastest laps. But for me, I think it was like lap 38. I'm like, we've got the gap. Like, Lewis has the gap to pit. And I feel like he needs to pit because ultimately the tires are going to get old. You were mentioning that. And I kept saying, all right, we've got enough time in between Perez. There's enough time for him to pit again. So nothing happened.
I mean, even Lewis got on the radio and was kind of bringing it up, too.
Like, these tires aren't going to last till the end. Is that what you guys are thinking? But even Perez said it. Perez was like, so these laps, these tires to the end? Yeah. And they're like, well, I don't know. So pretty much, I think that was right about the time, maybe a couple laps later, we got at this point, we had already had Kimi retired and then Russell retired, but they were able to make it back to the pit lane. So we didn't have any drama with that. They just were going slow. Yeah. Russell had, some issues with, I think, his engine. Kimi had some issues with his brakes. So, we get to Giovanazzi having the same issues. So Alfa Romeo, both cars retired. Yeah, which is sad because it was both their last races. It was. So I would have loved to see them finish, but he couldn't make it, so he stopped. So we got a VSC. To the VSC, it's like, okay, now what's going to happen? After I already was like, are they going to pit Lewis? What are we doing? Is this a two-stop?
Well, they pit Max.
So they pit Max.
Yep. He had a free, about a 10-second faster pit stop. They were saying roughly 24 seconds, give or take, the actual stop. But under a VSC or safety car, it cuts it down 10 seconds in half. So it's about a 14-second stop, which makes sense. So he came out pretty well, and then he was able to, when you're in the pit lane and you're leaving, between the safety car lines,
you can go as fast as you want, regardless of a safety car.
So he was able to gain a little time there, and he came out. It was probably right around 14 seconds behind.
No. It was like 18 seconds.
Was it that long? Okay.
Yeah, it was 18 seconds because it hit like right below. Because I remember Bono on the radio, but Perez pitted right after Verstappen. So both Red Bulls pitted. They both got new tires, and then Lewis was like, well, what are we doing? Like, should we pit? Should we not? But nobody knew how long it was going to take to get the car off. So they're like, no, we don't want to lose track position. So he stays out on his old hards, They're on new tires. So how quick is Max going to be able to catch him? And at that point, we had a little over 15 laps left. This is when I started to stress. This is when I...
No, you were stressed the whole time.
I know, but this is when I really started to stress. I'm like, okay, something's going on. Is this the right call? Like, I don't know. I wish, whatever. So I'm walking around, I'm pacing, I'm doing whatever. And then it was like, all right, no, Lewis, because Lewis was skeptical. He's like, we should have come in. I don't know if these tires are going to last until the end. And Bono's like, he needs to be gaining 0.8 on you every lap until the end to catch you. So we're like, oh, okay.
But then the lap that Max had just done, he had done 0.8.
Yeah, it was 0.8 exactly the first lap. Yeah. And we're like, all right.
But then so another lap went by, and we kind of heard some things like, I don't know if I can maintain this pace.
Yep. So Lewis was like, I don't know if I can maintain this pace till the end, but he's pumping out fastest sectors. And I'm like, okay.
So that's,
is this a strategy?
Yeah.
Is this not?
There you go.
So then it was like, I think we got on the announcer's gun, and it was like the last 5 laps, it had been 0.8, then it was 0.7 difference, then it was 0.5, then it was 0.2. So it was like, okay, so then we got right about that 11-second range, and we were holding steady to the 11 seconds. They were going through the back markers. They were making moves. They were doing this, and Lewis was coming through. There was the DRS train in the middle, which was, 4 to 5 cars. I think it was 4 when Lewis was coming through.
Yeah.
All different teams. So they were all scrapping through.
And Lewis was able to get past.
Lewis got through. And we're about 6 laps out. It's looking good. Maybe about 11 seconds at that point.
It was about 11 seconds, and
Alex is like, it's a done deal.
She's pacing behind us here, where you see through the kitchen, sitting down here right behind me.
Oh, you did notice that. At one point, I sat down on the ground.
I did notice.
And was like looking at the TV.
She was definitely crazy, and I think probably some of you guys were too. I was, I'm like, oh man, this is it. This is gonna be it.
You're like, there's less than 10 laps left.
Yeah.
There's less than a dozen laps.
Yeah. There's like, there's 10 laps left. And at 10 laps left, it was just your normal Abu Dhabi race kind of at the front. Like Lewis and Max pulling away, and Max was not really able to keep the same pace as that Lewis. Lewis really had this race overall up until this point in the bag. He controlled it right from turn 1. And right from the start. And, and if it would have ended right there on lap 57,
Lewis would be world champion.
That's right. And so, but it didn't turn out that way. So, we had an incident about 5-6 laps, like you were saying before, and Latifi from Williams was racing a Haas, which was Mick Schumacher, and they were coming into the hotel area kind of where we had an incident during practice with Bottas, and Latifi went on the line, and he had some dirty,
They made it through, but then it got a little squirrely.
It did.
He lost it.
Lost it, went sideways, went backwards into the guardrail, and pretty much broke everything on the back side of that car, and pretty much caused a yellow flag right away. So this is kind of where we got 5 laps left, safety car, Max pits again.
We're like, yeah,
yep.
Max pits again, but that's the thing. It's yellow flag, flag. Is it going to be yellow flag until the end of the race?
So right here, this is where the FIA should have made the call right away to red flag it. This is my opinion. I could be wrong. You can tell me if I'm wrong if you like. That's fine. But I think they should have red flagged it right there. Save those last 5 laps for everybody just to start fresh, because it was the only other way to be fair than what we witnessed. Because like you said earlier, like we said right in the beginning of this podcast, do you want this to be a yellow flag finish? And I don't think anyone wants it to be a yellow flag finish. Like, the appropriate thing to do would probably finish it under a yellow flag, because it was such few laps left. Give them enough time to clean up. By the time they had it all cleaned up, all there was going to be was 1 lap left, like there was. But like, I don't really ever see that. This is the first time I've ever seen anything like that. And, you ask anybody else that loves F1, they're going to say the same thing. They've never seen anything like that. Normally, it would have finished under a yellow flag safety car. So my opinion is when that happened, 5 laps left, they red flagged it. That's what they should have done. What do you think?
I'm surprised they didn't. Honestly, I thought it was coming, and I was like, oh. And I didn't even say it out loud. I just thought in my head, like, oh, Lewis is going to get free tire change.
Yeah, I
like
figured.
last race. But for
Give
me, I'm
him
like,
a couple laps.
just surprising because the car was on the track. It wasn't like it was off the track.
No.
Like, it was on the track.
In a tight spot, in a tight area. That would have took a few moments.
And then it was on fire. Like, the brakes were on fire. So, that, like, all that stuff that they drive through, and you'll see it when you watch that the last lap replay, which is the only part of the race that you need to watch, really, in reality. You see all this, like, the fire extinguisher dust that they have to drive through, which is on the track. So I was like, oh, they're probably going to red flag it.
They should have.
You get 5-6 laps of racing.
How much better would we all have felt if that battle between the two, they've both been on like new softs like that.
It would have been more even.
And there would have been multiple laps. So you would have seen at least maybe 2 or 3 attempts.
Yeah. It would have been more even. I mean, there was no DRS. So
no DRS.
Even with Lewis on 40 lap old hards was still trying to fight back and coming up even with Max. No matter which way you push it, if Max would have been on the other side, the team would have felt the same way. The fans would have felt the same way. It was crazy.
Yes.
I can't believe that the situation happened the way that it did.
All right, so the situation is they ran a couple more laps behind the safety car. Max was able to pit to get the softs on. He had a new set of softs, slightly used, and so did Perez back to back. And that didn't hurt them at all because of where they were positioned, P2 and P3 behind Lewis. And Lewis did not pit. His team still felt that it was okay for them to finish it up.
They were going to lose track position. And the reason they felt that way, and I feel like we've already said this episode, is that they basically were like, is it going to end up finishing under the safety car? Because nobody
traditionally it would have.
And nobody had any idea. And then the conversation on the radio, I feel like I'm yelling.
Oh, you're good.
Conversation on the radio was the lapped cars weren't going to be able to unlap themselves. So it was going to be...
and that was the problem. And you're right,
and that was going around right before the pit lane, like they were talking about it. And then after the pit lane, they made the decision, and it was boom, boom, Red Bull, pit, soft tires. And that's when Lewis was, please.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious on what he had to say there.
So
maybe we'll never know. Maybe we can find an unedited, uncensored version.
We can, because we already heard Valtteri's.
Yeah.
Bleep.
Yeah, well, his was good. Anyway, so what happened in reality was they did, 3 laps, almost 4 laps, pretty much behind the safety car. They were able to get the wreck cleaned up. Mm-hmm. We were all under the assumption that they were not going to, because we were being told by the commentary, by Crofty and Martin Brundle, that they were not going to let the back markers pass, and it was just going to be Max was going to have to battle past those for the last little bit.
But they were going to get blue flags, so
and honestly, my thought then was like, okay, you're losing your mind. I'm like, oh man, here's what's going to happen is maybe the blue flags, and maybe they'll just move aside all 3 of them or all 4 of them or however many it was, 4 or 5.
Well, I know Alonso was in there, so he would have moved easily.
He would have moved. So I think they would have moved aside for him just to let it finish because, again, they all knew it wasn't really, this was the race for them, for Lewis and Max, not between Alonso and Norris and I think it was maybe Ricardo or Ocon in that mix somewhere in there. And then so we saw some FIA and team radio go between Mercedes and Red Bull, and we saw Red Bull saying they wanted the back markers to clear out, and there was definitely enough time for that to happen. And we saw Mercedes saying, finish it the right way.
Yeah, and the problem is, in reality, because the team radio, and you've said it, is it's not coming across to us on the TV when it's happening in real life. It's not.
No, we're getting a delay.
We think, Christian said, well, why aren't they getting out of our way? And then all of a sudden they made the decision for just the 5 cars in between Lewis and Max to be cleared to unlap themselves. When in reality, they were probably already working on that, or it was earlier and then the decision was made. Doesn't mean that it wasn't a discussion that prompted it, but same thing with Toto when he was losing his mind about like the decision for it to happen when he was like, Michael, no, like, oh.
Yeah.
At the end, that was a little bit earlier than actually when it aired because the lap was already happening. So just, keep that in retrospect.
We have
Everybody.
Yeah. It's all edited content that we're seeing, especially from F1 TV and if you're watching Sky View Sports.
Yeah, so pretty much at that point, we unlapped those 5 cars.
Yep. So they so the race control let 5 cars go, which was the 5 cars that was between Lewis and Max, and that was on lap 57.
It was Stroll, Norris, Alonso, and Sainz. Those 4 cars.
So out of those cars, do you think they would have let Max by if they would have stayed?
I mean, I think it would have been a little bit slower than you see that. You see the racers when they have back markers, they do slow down a little bit. It wouldn't have been as easy as Lewis and Max were literally right next to each other.
Technically, Max
overtook
Lewis behind a safety car by like 2-3 inches or so, little bits. A little bits,
but it's determined that he backed off again.
He did. He backed off hard. He hit his brake and stayed behind. There's all kinds of, so
the drama.
Yeah, so the drama. So there we go. So lap 57 of 58, and they let the back markers go. Then we get the saying
the safety
that
car goes
the
in
safety car is
the pits.
ending, and that is coming around with pretty much a couple turns, and it's going in, and the race was going to be back underway for one final lap. And so it was all coming down to one lap. So from the beginning of the season, it was a tough season between 2 powerhouse teams. Came all the way down to one race. This one race now came down to one lap. So everything came down to one lap.
For the Drivers' Championship.
For the Drivers' Championship, yeah. And if you think of Red Bull, that's the world to them. So
I know it seemed like that mattered a lot more.
It did. They definitely put a lot into that, and I think they kind of gave up on the Constructors' Cup a few weeks back when they had some DNFs with Perez and had
which was literally last race.
It was
Saudi Arabia.
And it was tough because they were in the hunt for that too up until then, but they also had to retire Perez today because I don't know the reasoning. I don't know if you found out the reasoning yet. Maybe you guys know. And if one of you guys could tell us, that's great. My assumption is that he went so hard in that battle that he pushed that engine, pushed that EU, pushed his car to the very limit.
Because he never took a new engine all season.
Not really. And no, you're right. I mean, and then he came in, got some new tires. But once he came back out on those new tires, it was... he just kind of stayed there, and I don't think that engine was able to manage, and then clearly the car would not have finished the race.
Yeah, we haven't figured out exactly why. Sergio didn't even know why when they were like, we're gonna need to retire the car. He was like, why? So, or what?
Yeah.
What?
So there was something that was an issue. I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. So it was one lap left. Honestly, it was so crazy. This whole race was so focused on Lewis and Max. Honestly, at the end, I was like, who took P3? I didn't even know.
No one even announced it because it was.
You know what? Poor Carlos, because every time he gets P3, it's like he gets overshadowed.
He did.
But great race from him. But yeah, so
the big thing is too that Yuki Tsunoda and Gasly, they finished 4 and 5, which was kind of a big deal. And I think that I would have to watch the race again. We didn't get to see the coverage of everything that was kind of happening behind the two, because again, Lewis and Max had all the coverage because that's what it was all about. So all we saw was coverage of those two. We didn't get to see. I'm assuming the pit stop and the red flag or the yellow flags kind of benefited
Gasly for sure, because he was like running out of the points the whole race.
So yeah, and then
Norris had a tough race, and for him to finish P7 was pretty impressive. He had a slight puncture. He was having issues with like shifting, so that was pretty awesome to see his finish. But yeah, Tsunoda is going to win it all, world champion 2022.
That's what we hear.
I mean,
yeah, he finished up pretty good for his rookie season. He seemed to have found himself a little bit better in that team. And
AlphaTauri looking good. I mean, they had a great season.
We'll see. We'll see if he can come back and kind of fall back in line like he did and stay in Italy with the team. I mean, that's kind of the good thing for young drivers. Like, he shouldn't be in Monaco.
Oh, he moved there.
To where?
Wherever they're.
Oh, in Italy yeah. So that's where he should be, especially for even next year too. So so last lap. Let's get back on the last lap because that's pretty much it, and then the season's done. So
Hamilton, he goes, it's gone. He's
so
going.
yeah,
He's
so we're
thing.
ending the yellow flag behind the safety car, and Lewis and Max are pretty much right next to each other, just amped to go, and come around to the final turn to the straightaway, and Lewis went, and Max is pretty close right behind him. They go through turn one. Lewis is still in the lead, and they head down to that first hairpin, and
where the drama was.
Where the drama was is from turn one. You're right.
Or lap one, I meant. Sorry.
Yeah. And Max gets on the inside, makes another lunge, and this time Lewis backs off a little bit, just kind of,
Yeah, he didn't have the tires.
Didn't have the tires, definitely didn't.
And that's what we have to remember is that Max is on brand new softs, way quicker, brand new. Lewis is on old, 40-year-old hard tires, and it's just like, did we expect this to be?
I think everybody knew as soon as they let those back markers go, and it was a green light for those two to go. It was just a matter of time before Max get it. It was either going to be turn 5 right there, like you said, going into that first DRS zone, even though they didn't give DRS at all, or there was going to be after that next turn going into the second part of the straightaway. He would have passed him there because of the tires.
Yeah, which the straightaway. So Lewis did come back. He ended up side by side with Max, which he didn't give up, and then Max
going into turn 9 around the new turn there.
He had the new tires.
Yeah, so
and he was just pretty much at that point had the lead. Lewis didn't fight. He ended up 2 seconds behind at the line. So I was heartbroken. I wanted Lewis to win. I really did. I mean, honestly, it was the season for the record books. I know I haven't been watching as long as a lot of people out there, but
they both had a really good season. He did too.
It was unbelievable to watch.
But honestly, the 5 laps before that safety car, this whole race was Lewis
had the win.
He had the win in this race. He didn't get it, and that's the name of the game in racing. It's not over until it's over. The checker flag didn't fly until it flew in lap 58, and Max was in front. So that's the name of the game. Now we see some protesting started happening, and that's kind of what we were waiting for before we went and recorded this today, as we wanted to hear the outcome of the 2 protests that Mercedes did. We heard the outcome. Stewards are not going to investigate any further. They are going to stick to the decision of the race. And then, like we mentioned earlier,
Mercedes is appealing the decision.
They're going to appeal the decision. So we don't know that outcome as of the recording of this podcast. We should know more in a couple of days, couple of weeks. It is now winter break. The season's done. Max is the champion as we record this podcast. Congratulations to Red Bull, to Max. Well done. Amazing season for him. Amazing season for the second place with Lewis. And even Valtteri coming in third, a really good, strong performance from him because he held third place. No one was even close to him,
It started to get close towards the end with Perez.
But it wasn't that close.
Valtteri had a lot of bad luck this season.
He did.
I mean, I'll say that.
I mean, the tire being locked, and it was still, honestly.
The Russell crash.
Yeah, he had a tough season. And honestly, let's talk about that on a different podcast.
We will. We'll get to it.
So, that's the end of the 2021 season. Max won. Max the champion.
First Dutch driver ever. And what a fan base. So it's just been unbelievable to see. And as crazy and as controversial as the season has been, it was really nice to see how respectful they were to each other at the end. So it was great to see not only Lewis congratulate Max and Max be them hug it out at the end. I think that's what we're always looking for, is just to see that, to unite the fans, because things tend to get it gets boiled up, like we're as passionate, I feel like, for some reason, as the drivers are. Like almost sometimes more the fans
some of those fans are definitely, yeah.
Some of the fans are
Some
crazier.
of you guys are crazy. And that's awesome because you see it here in America with and the NFL and American football. There's some crazy fans that, paint themselves up and go die hard.
Yeah, but I think for me, like, really, it was nice to see that moment. It was nice to see Lewis's dad go over and congratulate Max and Max's dad.
I mean,
when
they're just champions. They're good people.
The respect and just, I mean, the charisma and just the type of, that's their character. Yep. And so that was great to see. And, they're both winners, but Max is the champion.
So yeah, Max won. That kind of wraps up the 2021 season with Red Bull and Max is the champion, and as we know right now, currently. So
Mercedes did sweep the hybrid era.
They did. They swept the car has swept the hybrid area. I'm kind of happy and sad, but I'm happy that we got to see a new champion in the end of the hybrid area, end of this car. Because next season it's a whole new thing, whole new car, and
not new tires and
everything. You're right. Yeah. So. Yeah, that kind of wraps up the race reviews that we've been doing this whole season. Unless you got anything more to say about today's race or this Sunday's race here in Abu Dhabi.
I mean, I think either way it swung, it was going to be a great race. I think we expected it to be as controversial, so it couldn't have been clear cut. So, I mean, that's how it needed to end.
So, I don't think the season could have ended any more wilder than what it did.
Like I said, we'll see what Drive to Survive looks like. They could not have scripted it better.
Yeah.
So, hopefully it's 20 episodes. I don't know how they fit it into 10, but we'll see, Hey.
Yep. So, yeah, it kind of wraps up today's episode. Now, that kind of wraps up the season for us, too. That wraps up the season for F1. When we started this season, when we started this podcast in the beginning of the season, we were just kind of going to review all the races. We have done that. We have met our goals. We have subscribers. We have new viewers all the time. So thank you very much. We appreciate everything. We would love to hear more content from you guys, comments. We will reply as we can. The goal in this off season is to do a couple more videos to kind of stay with you guys and kind of get through the 98 days of cold winter that we're going to have here in the United States.
98 days, that's it. A little over 3 months, but we'll be there with you.
Yep.
So we'll put out some new content, and don't forget to subscribe.
That's right. And
to our new viewers.
Yep.
And we'll keep it fun. There's going to be drama, there's going to be rumblings in the media. There's going to be all sorts of controversy still. But, we want to talk about our favorite races. We want to talk about all sorts of stuff. There's a lot to unpack from 2021. You can only keep it within that 60-minute time frame. And I'm sure we've missed a lot of details. So we'll be with you guys throughout that period.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. I'm Alex. That's Eileen. And you guys have been watching It's Lights Out F1. We'll see you guys next. Bye.